Hey guys, welcome back to 7th grade social study and our discussion of the Renaissance. I hope you enjoyed the exhibit project last week and you did lots of them and your family learned a lot, and I do hope that you had fun. It's important to have fun when you're learning. Today I just want to do another real quick review of the Renaissance. I'm going to do something just a little bit different. Today we're going to complete the sheet that you guys got at either online or that you got at the meal distribution sites. So this was a really easy thing to do, but I thought it was kind of fun with the countdown. So let's first discuss what you needed to do. Always when you get a worksheet, as you see here, it tells you what it is, but always do what the task says, step by step. I notice a lot of my students jump through and they don't read the steps and they get a little bit lost. So your objective here was to continue to review the Renaissance. The task was to use prior knowledge, information contained in the museum activity last week. So you're basing this on a lot of prior knowledge and the reading below. Complete the countdown and the questions that follow. She had a really quick reading, just another review, nothing major, and you go down to the countdown. Now this is really important, whereas it's not asking specific questions and answers, it's getting you to really think and analyze what you've learned. So what you're going to be looking for as you read or as you think about the answers to this are important key terms of the Renaissance, important ideas of the Renaissance, important key people, symbols to illustrate the Renaissance, and a summary sentence of the Renaissance. And now I do have an exemplar to show you, just one that I did, that I'll show you towards the end if you get stuck on any of those. The question at the bottom is also kind of interesting. Who would you most like to meet and why? Now, I want to just really do a real quick reminder of where all this started. I think it's really important to remind you that it all started here, the Renaissance. It started about in here in Florence. This was a great area for trade because it sat on the Mediterranean Sea, connected to Europe, very close to Asia, very close to Africa. So they got a lot of new ideas as they went along. Remember, here in Spain, we had the Inquisition, the Reconquista. Here in the other parts, there was the Black Death. You had England. You had William the Conqueror, all of those things that we have learned about before. Now, the one thing I do want to show you is last week we took a virtual tour, real quick virtual tour of the Sistine Chapel, which Michelangelo painted. Today I wanted to show you a real quick tour of the Globe Theater. We didn't touch on Shakespeare a lot last week, so I wanted to do that today. So this is a picture of the Globe Theater in London. Now the original was destroyed. This is where Shakespeare did his plays. The original was destroyed many years ago, and this one is a reproduction, but it's very, very close to true. One of the things that I think is most interesting about it is this flag. The flag would have shown what kind of plays were playing. There wasn't a lot of people who could read, and there wasn't nearly as much paper for playbills and things for people to see. And so what they would do, they would put up here, they would put up the color of flag based on if it was a tragedy, a comedy, history. And so you would know if you wanted to go see it or not based on what the color of the flag was. Now this is really cool. This is the inside of the newly done Globe Theater, but they did do it very close to what the original would have been. So you can see here, if we take this 360 view, you have a stage here. Up here is where the more wealthy would have sat. If it was raining, they would have been covered. You can tell there's no ceiling on this, no roof. People who didn't have a whole lot to pay could stand down here, so you still got to see the plays. But again, your more wealthy would have been up in the stands. And then here would have been the stage. The stage would have been covered. The acting would have been done on here. Please remember, it was a time there was no technology, there were no speakers, things like that. So this would have been in the round, would have been good acoustics, so you would have been able to hear very well. So the one thing I want to do before we get into our exemplar is I just want to show you a real quick timeline of the Renaissance. And I want to tie it into other things that you've learned. So here we have the dome for the Florence Cathedral. We looked at that last week, that really beautiful dome in Florence that kind of stands out when you see that picture. Oh, that's Florence. Then we have the Medici family here in 1434. But other things that you've learned also are in here as well. Look, Johann Gutenberg here. The Ottoman Empire and the city of Constantinople. Henry VII. We've got Christopher Columbus here, discovering the Americas. Then you have Leonardo. Vasco da Gama, who is one of our end units, end modules, arrives in India. You have Michelangelo here. You have Leonardo da Vinci. You have Michelangelo again on the Sistine Chapel. Then you have Henry VIII becomes King of England. So all of the things that we've been learning tie into the Renaissance or tie into that time period, because most of what we've been learning happens around the same time period. So after that really, really quick review, and I felt like you guys got a really good review last week, I kind of want to show you back to my exemplar. So if I was doing this, and you can look down here at the bottom, if I was doing this, my 5 key terms would be Florence, Italy, the Renaissance, of course, humanism, patronage, and the Medici family. Now you can choose any 5. There's not a right or wrong answer necessarily. There is one word in here that you may or may not know, and I wanted to point it out. The word patronage. Patronage is when you pay someone to do their artwork. So the Medici family specifically in this instance, who lived in Florence, Italy, who helped start the Renaissance by paying artists such as Michelangelo for their artwork. That meant that Michelangelo didn't have to go out and get a job. He didn't have to go out and find shelter. That Medici family paid for that and allowed him to do his artwork without worrying about anything else. So the 4 important ideas of the Renaissance, you can see mine here. I put it was a rebirth of culture. It was those cultures from ancient Greek and Rome, but there were other cultures in there as well. Started in Florence, Italy. It was a bridge between the Middle Ages and the modern times. People kind of came out of that Middle Ages, very little progress in Europe, and then all of a sudden this explosion of knowledge. It showcased art and education, which all goes back to humanism. So we're tying all of this in together. Important key people in the Renaissance, of course. I could have put the Medici family here as well. If we go back and look at that timeline, if you talk about just the time period, there's lots of other people you could put. We have William Shakespeare, greatest English playwright. Michelangelo. We have the sculptor. We have the Sistine Chapel, the David. We have Da Vinci, the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, his inventions, his study of anatomy. Excuse me. Symbols to illustrate the Renaissance. I put down a light bulb. I just pulled this off the internet, but I have new ideas down here. There's so many new ideas that just continued to grow during the Renaissance time period. And then I have this art easel, famous artists and art. Now we know not everyone painted. There were sculptors and architects, but it was a time of new ideas. Then my summary sentence says, the Renaissance was a time of culture, education, art, science, and new ideas that started in Italy. They began to spread, and again, it was that bridge to modern times. The Renaissance, which person would you like to meet? I said Leonardo da Vinci. He's known as the Renaissance man. He did so much that I think it would be interesting to sit down and talk with him and even interview him about what he did and how he did it. And I put why. Leonardo was a man who could do most anything. He impacted the world with his paintings, but also his inventions and study of anatomy. I would like to listen to his ideas in person. And of course, I pulled off a picture. You don't have to. I just thought it was interesting. We don't have a lot of paintings or pictures of Leonardo, but he did a self-portrait. And this would have been his self-portrait, just like he would have sketched other people and other things in his journals. So I hope that you have enjoyed the study of the Renaissance. I know that it's one of my favorite topics, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.